Hey guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Tonight, we usually would have a late night insight video, but tonight we actually have a full review because I am going to try to make this upcoming week Sherwood week. I can't promise every single review will be a Sherwood, but I'm going to try to focus on the house because I'm behind and I really feel like it's a house that deserves more love and attention from the community. It deserves a spotlight, let's put it that way. So today we're going to talk about a fragrance that I don't want to say I know like the back of my hand, but I know very well. I've given it 4 full wears. I've worn it to bed multiple times. It is called Sherwood Gentleman. And you can see the front of the packaging right there in the beautiful, almost like carpeted box that it comes in. And the gentleman sort of walking in the field in a suit is a perfect image of really what this fragrance stands for. The green grass, the sort of rolling hills in the background, the trees, and just look at this note listing. I mean, for a freshie, and that's exactly what this is. This is a artisanal take on the freshie DNA, okay? Look at that note listing. So I'll read them to you, but I can tell you that you're not going to pick up every single one of these notes, but they all come together to make the fragrance what it is, okay? So, and before I read them, actually, I'm going to do a fresh spray just to kind of remind myself of the opening. I believe these are 30 ml bottles, and I think Gentleman may be sold out. Oh, man. I'll tell you what, though, for a freshie, it is absolutely stunning. And so one thing that I will say while I remember to say it, I don't know if I actually put it in my notes or not, but when I first got the fragrance, the first couple wears, I thought it was weak. I was like, man, this is the weakest Sherwood fragrance I've ever smelled, ever. Not weak as in, that shit's weak, but I mean like weak as in it didn't project. I couldn't get the thing to project or where I would reapply all the time, and I never really felt like I was getting any performance. So I put it aside for 6, 8 months or whatever it was. Coming back to it now, it is so much stronger. I don't want to say it's totally changed and it's a completely new fragrance, but normally in the opening, you're going to get a blast of citrus. Of course, this is a gentlemanly, fresh fragrance and classically French created in style, I would say. So the focus is going to be on the Amalfi lemon, the Italian bergamot, the green lime, and the Bulgarian lavender. Very gentlemanly, very refined, clean cut, well taken care of, well dressed, well groomed, that kind of a man, right? Is the image that should come to your brain. But once it sat in the bottle for 6 months or whatever it was, I forgot. It's been a while since this came out, and he sent me this bottle. He did send me this bottle for free, in full disclosure. So believe what I say or don't believe what I say. I don't really care. I would never put my reputation at risk over a $80 bottle, and that's what this went for. I think it was like 75 or 80 bucks for 30 mils. Value for money through the roof. Outrageous on the House of Sherwood. And we'll talk about some of the downsides. If you've been watching my other Sherwood reviews, you know what they are, but we'll get into it here in a minute. But once it sat in the bottle for 6 months or so, and I pulled it back out, and it was able to, I don't want to use the word macerate because I'm sick of hearing people say, it macerated in the bottle. It just, as air gets into the bottle, it opens up. The fragrance blooms a little bit more. Perfumers macerate. Your fragrance does not macerate in the bottle, right? Perfumers macerate the fragrance for a certain amount of time. So that's just a little technicality that drives me nuts. I hate it when people are like, it macerated. It didn't. You're talking about your Mancera fragrance. It did not macerate in the bottle. But so that fresh, uplifting, beautiful, sprightly citruses, 10, 20 seconds in, you're basically hit with this beautiful purple, powdery smelling iris to me with just a little bit of funk. And the thing is that funk is a castoreum note in the base, which I'll go over here in just a minute. But once it sat in the bottle for 6 months and it was able to bloom, I get a little more of the heavier notes up front. So I was always wondering, where are the sort of anise and tonka bean and labdanum and styrax and birch tar and castoreum? Where are all those notes in this fragrance? At first I didn't get them. It was a very fresh, light fragrance. Now the fragrance has just bloomed. So it's crazy. Sometimes that's a little bit of a lesson. Sometimes you cannot just grab a fragrance, spray it, make a determination, throw it away, which some people will do. They'll buy a fragrance, smell it. It's not for me, sell it. And that's not fair, I don't think, to yourself or to the fragrance, in my opinion. I think you have to. That's the reason I don't sell fragrances, hardly ever. I think I've sold like one fragrance in my whole life, and I almost regret it. Um, even though I wasn't the biggest fan of the fragrance, I almost regret it. And so that's one of the reasons I don't sell, because I always like to come back and see either your nose changes or sometimes the fragrance changes. So here's the full note listing, and then we'll talk about kind of my 2 cents. So Amalfi lemon, Italian bergamot, green lime, and Bulgarian lavender in the top, with a heart of rosemary, orange blossom, absolute, jasmine grandiflorum, absolute, lily of the valley, champaca, heliotrope, absolute, mimosa, absolute, cassis absolute, with a base note of green tea, absolute, that's a big one, coriander, holy basil from Tamil Nadu, which sounds like a Star Wars reference, black pepper, an aniseed, Indonesian patchouli, oak moss, absolute, Virginian cedarwood, carrot seed, tonka bean, juniper berry, Spanish labdanum, Madagascar vanilla, absolute, styrax, orris root, birch, castoreum, leather, ambergris, and musk. And he does use real ambergris. I don't think he uses real musk in here, but I could be wrong. But value for money for these Sherwood fragrances is absolutely through the roof. You cannot find this type of perfumery for $80. Doesn't exist. And I went through some of the reasons why I think he can do that on my last video. If you're really interested, go watch my review of Inexplicable, which he basically told me he named it that because it was inexplicable to me. He did say that I reviewed it perfectly. He said I described it perfectly. He was like, but I named it that because I had a hard time describing it. It made no sense to me. But he said, your review was spot on. That's exactly how I experienced it, but it was inexplicable to me. So that was the reason for the name. So here is kind of the fragrance in a nutshell. Let me see if I can kind of walk you through this. So when you first spray, you're hit with that beautifully classically French citrus accord. It is beautiful, okay? It is. Most people who are deep in the fragrance game, serious frag heads, they avoid freshies, or they have a couple freshies they use and they go for all heavier fragrances. This fragrance is a perfect example of why I don't like to do that, because this fragrance does both. It gives you the freshie accord, but you can also see in the base it does give you some heavier notes as well. So it's almost like the freshie for people that don't like freshies, basically, right? So it's very invigorating and very fresh when you first spray. Almost like when you spray on an eau de cologne, it's supposed to give you that hit, that blast of uplifting feeling, right? As a man, put on your eau de cologne almost after shaving. That sort of feeling is the way that this opens up. Beautiful citruses, and then comes that powdery iris smell. There's no iris in here, but there's this iris smell, and along with the iris smell is a note or an accord that I would call this Petit Grand-like smell. Okay, so Petit Grand is sort of the unripe fruit and leaves and branches, is the literal definition of Petit Grand, of the orange tree, right? That's where orange blossom comes from, neroli. I believe they all come from the same tree. And so if you like fresh fragrances, like if you like Bergamot 22, Creed's Original Vetiver, or the bitter but dirty start to Versace L'Homme, I would love a vintage bottle of Versace L'Homme one day. I only have the modern, and it's still good for the modern for $20 or whatever. It's probably one of the best $20 you can spend, but the vintage is supposed to be on another level. I need to source that down, hunt that down one day. Or I would just say, if you're just a fan of fresh eau de cologne type fragrances, Gentleman should be on your list to sniff. If you have a wish list or something, I would put it on the wish list. I do believe it's sold out. And the downside with this house is he doesn't have his website yet, so you do have to contact him directly. I will leave the Instagram. Well, his Instagram is just Sherwood Parfums, so you don't need me to leave that, but I'll leave his email. He was kind enough to say, Ramsey, you can put my email in the description. So for people that are like, I'm never signing up for Instagram, and for you people who are doing that, good for you. I'm proud of you. Fight the machine. I was one of those people until I finally gave in because of Perfume. Perfume made me basically sign up for Instagram so I can communicate with people and stuff like that. But if you're like one of those people that's like, I'm never having a social media account, I will leave the email in the description as well. So if you like the fresh, uplifting style, the first hour is impressive. Again, it's that balance of fresh, citrusy, invigorating, uplifting eau de cologne style fragrance. But again, if you think this is an eau de cologne, you are drastically mistaken, because this is not an eau de cologne. The fragrance stays true to its name with that very classy lavender type citrus concoction blend, right? So the lavender and citruses manage to remain extremely realistic. It's one of the reasons I like this fragrance so much. It's almost like a sour, bitter lemon smell. So fresh and welcome, very welcoming type smell. And really, I reviewed some Bortnikov fragrances that are also in this artisanal space, if you will, from end of 2022 when he put out those colognes, Cologne de la Terre, Cologne de la Feu, all that stuff. I hated those. And then he put out some other stuff that had some citruses in there that I just didn't like. Scheherazade was one. I recently reviewed Le Voyage Oriental, which was a creation by Maxim Bortnikov, Dmitry Bortnikov's son. Hated the citrus opening in that as well. I'm just not liking the plasticky citruses Bortnikov's been using lately. This is such a breath of fresh air compared to smelling some of those plastic citruses and just the cheap smelling citruses you get from designers. You know the type I'm talking about, the generic grapefruit, and the write-ups like the most original fragrance of the year, and it's like grapefruit, pink pepper, rose. It's like, come on. So this sort of is really a breath of fresh air, and I do think this fragrance is for a gentleman. Although I don't necessarily think there's anything in this that would stop a woman from wearing it. I mean, I just have this classical gentleman association with this fragrance. There's no shaving foam notes in here. It's not a shaving foam type fougere fragrance, but there is this overall feeling of groomed freshness that just kind of comes through because of the personality of the fragrance. This fragrance carries itself a certain way. You know, this fragrance is for the man, I think, who is in the office. But I will say it will not impress the beast mode bros or, you know, the folks who are used to smelling nothing but amber woods that project for 20 hours straight. This is not that type of fragrance. This fragrance aims to smell natural and beautiful. And maybe it does sacrifice a little bit of longevity and sillage and all that stuff for the fact that it sits a little closer to the skin and it doesn't project as much. But my bottle, like I said, has opened up drastically compared to when I first got it. So that is a big point I have to make. And the natural materials in here, that's why I say value for money for this is through the roof. And so you don't have to necessarily take my word for it. There's probably a bunch of people who have left comments on this fragrance. Or you'll probably see some of the comments in the video from other folks who have purchased this fragrance on their own with their own money. But the materials smell so natural, so fresh. Sometimes they wear a little bit light. Sometimes I do wish it was amped up a little bit, but I think that would take away from the personality of the fragrance. So, like I said, strengthens a lot in the bottle. The heavier notes are in the base. So that's where you're going to get the castoreum. That's where you're going to get the leather. But really, it's the elegant notes that make the fragrance to me. Like I said, there are heavier notes, but I really feel like this fragrance is made to accentuate the elegant mannerisms of the person wearing it, right? So if you are taught to eat your dinner a certain way from the silverware from the outside in, if you're taught to fold your napkin a certain way when you get up for dinner, you know, if you're taught to shake a person's hand a certain way, if you've been taught those things, if you went to elocution school, if you try to carry yourself in a certain manner, right? Sometimes you can just look at someone and by the way they hold themselves and the way that they carry themselves in just day-to-day interactions with people in the office, after work hours, whatever it is, it tells you something about the person, right? This fragrance to me accentuates those aspects of that person, in my opinion. So now, one thing that I will say is, as the fragrance dries, I would say this is the green tea fragrance. Okay, now you may look and say, I don't need a green tea fragrance, and I never even thought I needed a green tea fragrance in my collection, and I was the exact same way, I must admit. When this really hit me, and it hit me what this is a green tea fragrance. I mean, it starts off with the beautiful citruses, it's got the labdanum and leather and castoreum in the base, but really the heart of the fragrance is carried by the green tea note. And it's interesting because, like I said, for me, I was like, a green tea fragrance. It's just a little bit strange and out there. It sounds weird and out there, but the more I've worn it, the more I realize the green tea adds this natural clarity to the scent. It's very crisp, natural, and it's like seeing everything with new eyes, where everything is crisp and clean and fresh and relaxing. Those days where the sun is just shining, the world just kind of seems brighter. There's not a cloud in the sky. It's ELO's Mr. Blue Sky on the radio all day. It's like being on vacation, wearing your favorite shirt, wearing your favorite shades, and just enjoying a well-earned vacation. Gentleman gives that vibe. I feel like the citrus top is accentuated by that herbal lavender and zesty freshness. Okay, so lots of zesty freshness that bring to mind words like sprightly and uplifting. And I mentioned I smelled iris in the beginning. And you'll get it like 30 seconds in. You'll start smelling that powdery purple smelling iris. It smells very posh and very high class with the citrus combination, but it's not iris. What it is it's actually carrot seed. And carrot seed is known to mimic iris. So remember, this is a budget fragrance. His goal with this line, he told me, was to bring perfumery at a certain level to a point where anyone could afford it, right? Less than a bottle of Dior Sauvage you could get this for. And I just can't wait for his website where more people can access it. I think these older ones that are sold out are going to go for 5 times what they sold for. I think people are going to realize what this is. And I mean, who has real ambergris in its $75 fragrance? Almost nobody, right? And so you could say it's only 30 mil, but when you have a big collection like mine, this will last me for a decade, depending on how much I use it. So now, along with that carrot seed, there is heliotrope or heliotrope absolute and mimosa. And I think the heliotrope adds that Play-Doh-like feel, and the mimosa adds this powdery feel that mimics the high-class iris note that I was mentioning earlier. So that is a perfect example of how Prakhar Gupta really shines in his work to me. Making a fragrance smell this classy at this price point with these materials is impressive. Not much impresses me anymore in the frag game. His fragrances have impressed me. It's just invigorating. And like I said, is it the strongest fragrance? No. But it amps up your mood, and if you have like an important meeting or you have to wear a suit to work, this is like a perfect fit for those type of days, to me. It's a perfect fit for the office, but I also think it's a perfect fit for vacation, especially in the hot climate. And so here's the thing. So the citrus top notes, let's say, last about an hour to an hour and a half. And that green tea note acts as like a hinge or a capstone, if you will, in this fragrance. It takes the baton from those citrusy, masculine, airy sort of top notes, along with the Bulgarian lavender, and it creates a bridge that opens up with the floral heart and the heavier animalic notes and the labdanums and stuff like that in the base. Now, the floral heart does not get a lot of talk when I've heard people kind of discuss this fragrance, and rightly so. I think when you name a fragrance gentleman, you can't have the floral heart kind of shouting, right? And the florals in here smell almost shy. They smell aloof. They smell, I mean, they're there. Like if you're a technician and you're going to break a fragrance down, you're going to take notes on a fragrance. If you're like Mark from the Robes 08 channel and you're someone who's serious about perfume, you will pick them out. Hands down, there's no doubt about it. You'll pick out the florals. It's a big part of the composition, I think. But it's almost like you're walking hand in hand with some beautiful woman next to you. The sun is shining. You're wearing your masculine perfume, and she has like a picnic basket or something. She's carrying something that is enclosed, and she's picking these beautiful flowers: jasmine, champaka, mimosa, acacia, orange blossom, all these different flowers. She picks them, she puts them in the basket, closes the lid. So you get a little hit of some of these flowers, but they are aloof, is a good way to describe it. And the lavender starts to smell like this ancient floral, herbal lavender type smell. And the character of the fragrance is green, okay? So green tea makes this fragrance have this green character to it, but the green tea acts as like an amplifying effect. It does it in a way where it makes everything feel so smooth. Everything in this fragrance is like a smooth operator, right? Everything is choreographed, but the fact that the fragrance isn't dense and doesn't project across the room, people can't smell you when you walk in like Sauvage EDT. There isn't that throw, right? That can be a pro for wearing this type of fragrance. There are just some days when you're in the office. I mean, I wear anything to the office. I've worn the history of Chinese oud to the office. I won't lie, I have. I'm a little bit braver than most. But if you want to be season or let's say event specific, these fragrances are necessary to have in your collection. Everything doesn't have to be a 20-hour beast mode scent. So the way this fragrance wears into the dry down is so beautiful because yes, it is green, but it is a purely like olfactory color scheme green. It's not green like the 70s Chypres. It's not green like Dessandra's is green. It's not green like, let's see, like something like Galbanum is green. It's not green like a resinous green. It's green like that clarity of green tea. You know, green tea to me brings to mind sitting in a cafe, sipping green tea like with your friends or something and having good conversation and just relaxing, you know, like you're completely and totally, utterly relaxed. You're with friends. The mood is not stressful. And if you're with somebody and that's your person and they make you stressful, rethink the person that you're with. You shouldn't be with people that make you stressful. You should be with people who you enjoy your moments in this very short life with, right? So you're with those kind of people and you're just kind of enjoying life. And there's great conversation going on and you're just loving that moment. It's like seeing a box of crayons and picking out like the very light green, not the heavy dark winter green, but just the very light green inside of the box of what 64 Crayolas or whatever it is. They've got those different shades. Imagine picking out the very light green and just painting, just coloring this scent with it. The green tea does that, but underneath, even though the green doesn't smell like the resinous labdanum or anything like that, underneath, that's where all of the heavy fragrance notes are bubbling up. And that's why I said at the top, it's like a fragrance that is two-faced. On the one hand, it's focused on the fresher part, especially in the opening. But as it dries, you do get the heavier, leathery castoreum, birch, which adds that papery, leathery-like smell. Styrax makes the leather dry down smell slightly waxy, balmy. And the castoreum adds just the right amount of funk. I mean, the tiniest amount of funk. It's not Antaeus or anything like that, but it is classy, extremely classy scent. And what's so crazy is the different types of scents that I've reviewed from Prakar Gupta. Very impressed with his blending skills, very impressed with the materials, even more impressed with the price. Sad that it's hard for some people to get these scents, but I'll tell you what, there's very little that gets me moving anymore. Very little excites me. Sometimes you're just like smelling your 10,000th sample of the same BS over and over again. But these artisanal houses, my heart is in two places right now. Vintage, true proper vintage. Like I wore Sang Royale by Capucci from 1967 the other day for the first time. Absolutely loved every second of it. I can't tell you the last new fragrance that hasn't been an artisanal fragrance from Sherwood or Arige or Ensar or something like that where I felt the same way. I can't tell you. I can't tell you. I mean, literally, I cannot tell you when the last time that has happened. And so my heart is with vintage and it's with these artisanal brands. And Sherwood is proving itself to be, they always made these fragrances that this fragrance in a $75 bottle smells like it's a $250 fragrance to me. It smells like you're smelling something at the $250 level. When he put out Ambrosia, that's when it really took it to the next level for me. And I cannot wait to see the future of Sherwood. I know he's got some new stuff coming out for 24. It's a brand you will be hearing more about on the channel, I promise you. And so it's funny because in my previous video I mentioned there were some folks in the comments saying how they're still optimistic about the future of fragrance. And I'm like thinking at the time, how can you be optimistic? But the more I thought about it, the more they're right. And it's not because of what the Borg houses, the monopoly houses are doing. It's not what the LVMHs and the Puiges and these big conglomerates, the L'Oreals. It's not what they're doing. They're sucking up more and more companies, but the more they do that, the more there's like this underground movement of companies like this showing what true perfumery is about, using the real ingredients, making fragrances that are interesting and different, blending them in a way that is amazing, and taking chances on smaller batches to do just amazing perfumery for people like us is really what this type of perfumery is for. This is not for the masses, I wouldn't think. Although this is maybe the most mass appealing of the Sherwoods, I don't think these type of brands are for the masses. They're for the hardcore frag heads who are sick and tired of the same old designer crap. And the niche fragrance game is starting to turn into the exact same thing. It's starting to kind of be designers at triple the price, for whatever reason. Fancy bottles because people just like to flex or whatever it is, right? And so a lot of these artisanal house, and then going back in time and exploring the never-ending well of vintages is really kind of where my heart's at. So I have to say, as always, thank you for watching. Thank you for leaving comments and participating in the back and forth. I know that we've been growing pretty steadily. We're adding like 500 subscribers a month, which is way more than I ever expected. I never expected 500 subscribers at all in the first place. So 500 a month is like, we're growing at a steady clip. And I probably could do more live streams and all that stuff to bring in more people, but I'm happy with the way I do it because I want my channel to be a little bit of a encyclopedia. I want people to, if they find my channel, to be able to go back and kind of hear my thoughts and go back through my museum, archived reviews to see my thoughts and what I thought about the fragrance and all that stuff. And hopefully it helps making decisions on what to go after. So anyways, that's my thought. If you have experience with Sherwood Gentleman or the House of Sherwood in general, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Cannot wait to smell the new Sherwoods for 24. I probably have 5 or 6 samples from Sherwood that I have not done reviews on the channel, so we could turn this into a Sherwood week. It just depends on how much time I have this weekend, so we'll see. But as always, love you guys. Cheers, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.